So if you remember in the last videos, we were talking about graphing polynomial functions. And you remembered me mentioning that on all of our sketches, we had a minimum and a maximum, okay? So all that this is going to do is basically allow us to write as accurately as we can. We're still going to have to round. As accurately as we can, we're going to name the minimum or maximum value. Now, it's technically an ordered pair. It's like coordinates, okay? But for the purposes of actually giving the value of the minimum or the value of the maximum, we are going to give just the y value. Okay, so everything about the way we do this is going to start out the same. We're going to graph the function just like we did on this page, okay? But we have some extra steps after we graph it. So let's do that first. Let's go ahead and take this first function here. Y equals 8x cubed minus 10x squared minus x minus 3. And let's graph it. So let me get my calculator up. So I'll turn it on. And again, I'm going to just always clear the list. So second plus, because remember plus is the mem. And you're going to see this menu pop up and I want 4. So I'm going to do 4 and then I'm going to say enter. And it says done. Okay, and now remember I just did a previous example. So when I go to y equals, my other function is in there. So I'm going to want to push clear and get that out of there. Okay, so now I'm going to enter in this function. So 8x cubed. So 8x, and then remember to do the exponent, I do the caret button and the 3. And then minus 10x squared, so minus 10x squared, and then minus x and minus 3. So minus x minus 3. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and push graph just like I did before, and there is going to be a graph that's going to show up. And I'm not going to graph it on this one. It's not asking me to, okay? What I'm being asked to do is to find the relative minimum and the relative maximum, okay? So here's how we do this. So in order to do this, I'm going to have to access a calculation feature. Now, the trace button is right here, but you'll notice that above it, it says calc. I want to calculate what this maximum and this minimum are. The highest peak right here is the maximum, the lowest is the minimum. They're kind of close. So I'm going to push second calc, and then this menu is going to pop up, and there's a lot of things I can calculate. If you remember me mentioning to you, if I really wanted to find out what the zeros of the function are, if they weren't right on a tick mark that's on the x-axis, I could actually find the zeros of the function, the solutions that lie on the x-axis. I can find a lot of things, okay? But right now I'm just going to focus on minimum. So I'm going to find the minimum value after I've pushed second trace, because it really means calculate, okay? So it says to see a list of items to calculate. So I'm going to find the minimum value by pressing 3 because the minimum is listed as number 3. So I'm going to push 3. And what pops up is you're going to notice in the window, there's my function that I entered. And then down here, there's an x value and a y value, okay? But I don't know 100% sure if that's really what the value is, okay? And when I say value, I mean the value of the function, not where the point is actually located. 0, -3, it looks to be about where that point is located, okay? But what I want to do is I want to find out, is it exactly -3 or not, okay? So notice that these words appear. It says left bound, and there's a question mark. Here's the silly thing, okay? The graph has reappeared, but this time there is a box point and it's flashing, okay? If you look really carefully, you can see it. It's a box and it's got like these lines poking out of it, almost like rays of sunshine, and they're flashing, okay? So they're flashing. So when it says left bound, okay, and that's what's going to pop up, the words left bound appear, but the question mark means that the calculator is playing dumb and it doesn't know where the minimum or the maximum are. Okay, the minimum is right down here, okay, and that's what I've asked to find is the minimum. And you can see that that's the lowest point, but at this point we don't really know where, what the actual value is. So the calculator is asking you to kind of close it in and give a range of where the minimum falls. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this box point somewhere to the left of that, just slightly. It doesn't really matter exactly where, but just so you can see that it's to the left of that minimum. Okay, and I'm going to do that by moving the arrow. So if I use the right arrow and I move it, you're going to see it's moving down, and you see my values changing because there's points that lie on this graph that are not exact points, they're decimals. So if I keep moving, that's a little too close. So I'll just go right there. You'll notice that it's flashing and it's right to the left of where I think the minimum is. So I'm going to push enter. Okay, so use the arrow to move the box point to any point to the left of the minimum and press enter. Okay, when I do that, you're going to see the words right bound show up now. Okay, so see, it says right bound. Now it's saying, okay, you told me how far left it could be. Now tell me how far right it could be. Okay, so you're going to move the calculator and you're going to move it to the other side of the minimum. Okay, to the right side. And we'll do it the same way. We're just going to move the box point to any point to the right of the minimum and press enter. Okay, so I'm going to move it. Okay, that's to the right, and I'm going to push enter. And then it says guess. Okay, so it's asking you, do you want to make a guess? Now you could choose to make a guess, and we can move the arrow back. Okay, and we can put the arrow back down here where we think it is and say enter. But the calculator, you've defined what it's in between, so it's okay just to simply just keep it where it is and say enter. So that's why I have please press enter twice. Enter once, and then when it says guess, push enter again. And the minimum value is going to appear, but the minimum value is the Y value, okay? You may round to the nearest hundredth or the tenth, whichever you prefer, okay? So I'm going to push enter, so that my guess is going to be okay. And there's my minimum. Now it's giving me the X value, okay? And then right here, it's going to give me the Y value. So when this value, which is kind of close to 1, you can see that it's almost 1. When that value pops up, okay, the Y value is about 6 down, but we're going to estimate to the nearest tenth or hundredth, and I did it to the nearest hundredth, so negative 6.17, because it says negative 6.172229. So when I round to the nearest hundredth, it's going to be about negative 6.17. That's the value of the function at the minimum based upon the value that they have for X, which is close to 1. And you can see if it's 0.88, that's pretty close to 1, okay? But when we write the minimum and maximum value, we're just going to simply write the Y value, okay? Now I can do the same thing with the maximum. So I'm going to go back to second calc, and I'm going to scroll down this time to number 4, because number 4 is the maximum. I'm going to push enter. And again, it's going to put the function and it's going to ask you to tell them, where is the maximum? Where is the left side of the maximum? Well, the maximum is going to be here. So I'm going to move the arrows back to the left and go on the other side, about right there to the left of where the maximum is. And I'm going to push enter. Then it's going to say right bound. Well, I'm going to go to the right of the maximum now. Push the right arrow button. That's to the right of it. It's kind of close, but it's to the right. Push enter. And then it says, do you want to take a guess? Well, if I just say enter, it's going to be my guess. And then it takes it a minute. It's thinking, and then it pops up. Okay, and again, this is the X value, which is pretty much at 0. You can tell that it's 0.047, but that's pretty close to 0. But it goes down to about 2, or closer to 3, negative 2.975919. So I rounded that to negative 2.98. So you can see if I round the 7 up, the 5 tells the 7 to go up. And it's pretty close to negative 3, but this is how you give the most accurate value, rather than saying 0, negative 3. It's pretty close, but this is the exact value. Okay, I'll do another example here in just a moment.